My name is Geoff Dabelko. I'm a professor at the Voinovich School of Leadership and Public Service at Ohio University and an associate senior fellow at SIPRI. Well, it's critical as we make these transitions away from fossil fuels to a green economy and a wider renewable approach, a sustainable approach, that we understand that that can be still disruptive and that there are winners and losers, and we have to really take great pains to make sure that that transition is as just and as peaceful as possible. And so it's not meant to put up barriers to making those necessary transitions. And I would also add addressing the biodiversity crisis and advancing conservation. It's not to put up barriers or roadblocks, but instead, because those transitions are so important, we must make sure that we take great care in how those big changes are made, because they are dramatic changes. And so therefore it's critical from a practitioner's perspective, from a researcher's perspective, from community perspectives, that we integrate this lens of being conflict sensitive and really attuned to questions of justice. Well, it's probably correct to say that there are multiple transitions, because not everyone is departing from the same place in terms of their energy mix or their way of life, their levels of income and opportunity. But I do think that there are signs that there's a recognition that there's a problem, clearly. Second, that changes and dramatic changes have to be made. Third, we do have real challenges around getting those changes to happen. Those are economic challenges, those are political challenges for sure, also cultural challenges. This change is really a difficult and all-encompassing. Nevertheless, I think we are seeing signs that the innovations, whether those are technological, social, political, or the kind of cultural evolution, that they are happening. Not fast enough, and not without real challenges in the justice and conflict space. But nevertheless, it is while a really challenging agenda, one that we do see signs of hope and progress being made. Well, I think that some things unfortunately won't change, which is, for example, how mineral intensive the technologies for providing energy are, right? Renewable and solar, these are really intensive. In fact, predictions of up to needing 5 times as much as currently mined by 2050 to meet renewable energy targets. So unfortunately, an area where there are significant peace and justice issues, mining and extraction and processing, that is not going to go away. In fact, it may increase in different ways and also become, and already has, a larger part of geopolitical competition that is going to add a political and political security layer on top of it that may not have even been there so much before. I do think, though, however, that the benefits that can be afforded with, say, renewable technology, greater flexibility, more resilience, being able to be independent of a large and brittle grid, for example, as well as the fact that the costs have come down and that ultimately the cost savings are there in the pocketbook, but also in the health accounts in terms of what that means for populations that aren't breathing the dirty air produced by fossil fuels or the attendant problems there. And so I think there are multiple ways to see and make a case for the transition. Yet it is not going to be, again, without winners and losers and some persistent challenges, some of which we're familiar with and some of which will have new dimensions as well. I think we immediately, of course, go to the level of countries and governments, because in part these challenges are ones that truly cross borders. They don't ignore borders entirely, because borders really matter, but it requires all parties, so to speak. And so we think at that international and intergovernmental level and the importance of national governments. But frankly, I think we often stop there and neglect. It seems so technical subnational actors, right? But the amazing diversity, innovation, creation that's done at the local and state and regional levels, and truly where the rubber meets the road, even if we'd rather it be rail rather than a car, right? And so, in that sense, it's critical that we not neglect those private for-profit and private non-profit actors at different levels below the federal level, understanding that, in fact, without those players, this isn't going to happen either. Sure. I think you don't work in this space without remaining hopeful. In fact, I think to succumb to a catastrophic view or framing even of the issues is counterproductive, because I think it leads to people disengaging, giving up hope, or adopting short-term self-interested perspectives that are ultimately counterproductive. And so while it is hugely daunting, that we find our own piece, our own slice, our own way to make a contribution. We look for ways to make that add up and aggregate and spread. And we do that in the hope that we can make difference at multiple levels.